I've been lazing around all day, and I decided it was time to get up and just play with my art supplies a little bit. So I'll tell you what I got here, and the rest of it I'll tell you as I go along, because what I'm going to do is flip the camera down to where it's mostly just watching my hands on the paper. What I did so far, I thought I got this journal out, which has the thick pages in it, which are very nice for mixed media stuff, but I got the wrong one out. I've got this one, may even be a sketchbook, but I've already done some stenciling on the cover, so I can't tell what it is. But anyway, the pages are thinner. The pages are thin on this. So what I did before I got started with the live was put some gesso on the page to stiffen it up a little and make it be able to handle whatever we do to it. And I let that dry while I went in the other room and grabbed a stack of scrapbook paper, which is what we're gonna stick on here. So what I have in mind, and you can use any kind of paper that you have, drawings, printouts, magazine sheets, napkins, if you have the patience not to tear up the napkins with the matte medium, which is what we're going to use for glue. I'm going to use scrapbook paper, so I got out a stack of scrapbook paper, just miscellaneous. I'm going to look through it here as we go and choose. There we go. So I have some gesso out, some matte medium, some modeling paste. I've decided in the beginning here to go with like an outdoor scene and something like flowers or something like that. So I'm gonna start with thinking about outside and going with blue tones toward the top and green tones toward the bottom, and just some miscellaneous colors thrown in. Probably gonna cover that up anyways, but that's just what I'm gonna do. So, okay, now I'm gonna turn the camera down. Bye. So all that's on here so far is gesso, and that was just because I got out the wrong journal, and the paper wasn't as thick as I wanted it to be for what all we might put on there. So I'm thinking about, that's kind of cute. That has a light blue to it. That might be something good for up toward the sky. Okay, we're gonna start out, and this is just like a one-page thing, and we're gonna start out with horizontally on here. And this isn't as wide as this, but it really doesn't matter. And like I said, you're probably not gonna see it later anyway. I'm gonna tear this whole piece off. And normally you tear from this direction so that you don't have the white part showing, but we're not as worried about that on here, and that leaves me more better edge for next time I use this paper. Doesn't have to go all the way across, it's just whatever you feel like. So we'll tear that and get a piece of this next blue. Trying to not stop and think about it too much, because if you stop and think about it too much, then you're like stifling your creativity, you know what I mean? Now I'm just gonna grab Turquoise Iris Assistant, and that looks about like an inch to me too, so it's either 3/4 of an inch or an inch. And I'm just gonna pour some, this is just matte medium, so you could use Mod Podge or whatever you have. I'm just gonna put the glue down, stick the paper on it. Or, you know, the matte medium is just, you know, you can use it for a bunch of things, but it makes a perfect glue too, and it's, you know, see-through. So anything that's your favorite paper could be going on here. Anything you just have when you sit down. Tear up an old Western or an old romance novel. Every bit of that would work. Okay, as much as I hate to have to blow dry, stop on that because we will have to do a little more in a minute. I don't know whether this is soft or hard. The softer your pencil, the more it'll smear, and the harder your lead, the less it'll smear, but this is about a medium. But here is where, I mean, this is an art journal, so this is where you could write anything you want to for the day. We're gonna say, I love flowers in springtime, and I'm excited to go see Miss Charlie's booth. It's a great day. So you can write anything you want to get out of your system on your paper. But like I said, we're fixing to cover it up anyway, but it's still there. In my heart, it's still there. It's not going to take a whole lot because I'm not going to put it on here real thick because I want it to dry so that we can continue to move forward. That's probably half a tablespoon. Can you see that? Yeah. And then I'm just going to sort of thin that out and make it a little more opaque with some gesso, and I put probably about an equal amount. So we're just going to blend those up. If you wanted at this point, you could put a little bit of pink in here and tint the whole back thing pink or purple, whatever your favorite color is. Anything you want to do. It's still a little bit lumpy, and I'm not wanting to get too big of a blob on there, but I do want a blob on there, and I'm going to go left to right because that's the way my brain works. Oh, look, that made, I don't know if you can see that good, that made the words show a little bit better in that textured paper. And I'm still continuing for the consistency part of it. I'm still continuing to do all of this in the horizontal fashion. Now is where you think about where was the paper that you really liked. I really liked a little bit of the sun coming through. So see, I'm going to scrape a little bit of that extra off of there. Even though we're going to paint this in a minute, I'm trying to see if I was going to be able to see that pattern out of those pieces. So I'll scrape some off of that. So now I have to dry that part. Okay, this is pretty dry. So you can see now that, you know, most of the paper is covered up with that. And now we're going to paint a little bit, and I'm going to stay with this same color thing right now because that's just simple. For this stage, you could use watercolors, you could use pastels, you could use craft paints. You know, that I always use these Blicks, they're my favorite. I'm just going to use this same brush. But I'm going to get an amount of the water to put in there and thin this out a little bit because I don't want it so opaque that a little of our paper still needs to peek through. Ooh, that's bright. And I'm just kind of using the idea of where that paper was. It's going to be a green tinted yellow there. Kind of spread that out, be our sky. But with the gesso under there and the other coats and everything under there, it's not as much sinking through this paper with the water as it would without it, especially with this thin paper. I'm going to grab some of the white and try to lighten some of this up by just going back over it and keeping dampening it now. I'm just kind of streaking it through, not all the way, and just, you know, kind of bringing up a little more color. I guess I'll make the right hand side a little lighter than the left hand side and do it that way. If we brush over it, help to remove some of the paint and some of the areas over our papers. I'm trying not to be so rough that I tear the paper, but because it's dried more than I wanted it to, I am being a little bit rough with it. Okay, I think that's good, and that's a, you know, that's a mixed media background, so there we go. I do need to dry it just a tad, but that shouldn't take long. Now you would just draw whatever it is that you wanted on here. I'm gonna just go for a flower because that's just what I had in my mind when I sat down here, and we can do something simple like just some daisies. Now we get to just color that in. I always like to, just like I do with, you see me do on a lot of the canvases, to sort of frame it in from the edges, and just use the dark blue. I'm just going to go to my pastels for this. Blend that in a little. You don't want it blended in a lot, I don't think. I don't like it blended in a lot. I'm gonna stop. Thank you for joining me. That really does make my day. I appreciate y'all so much, and I hope that you go and get your something out of your stash to play with today that's out of your norm, and make something new and have a good time and just play with it, and don't be serious with it like I did here. And I would love to see it when you do. Thanks for joining me.